Hello humans, Master Dinnerflex here, bringing you the low quality content you deserve, and today I'm going to be going over a prototype deck. Now, this is something I don't really go over much. When you see my deck profiles, it just says what it is. But very rarely, I don't think I've done it any time recently, I will say prototype deck. And there's one simple reason for this. When I say prototype deck, that means I don't believe it's finished. And my criteria of what a finished deck is, every deck profile I make, and it's been this way for a long time, I playtest and get all the things worked out of it before I upload it. And one of the things I do is make sure the deck has a solid enough win rate for myself that if someone else picks it up, they can win either enough games to be happy, or they can win more games than me and actually do kind of well with the deck. The win rate is all dependent on the type of the deck I upload. Like, if it's a casual deck, it doesn't have to be insanely high, but I do always try to make sure the win rate is a little higher than its lose rate if it's casual. And then the better the deck is, the higher I try to get that win rate up. So a lot of the times when I make a prototype deck, it's because the win rate is not up to expectation. However, the concept of the deck, I am under the impression, can have a much higher win rate through more testing and maybe even just a tiny bit of support found somewhere. But that's what I wanted to go over very quickly. This is a prototype deck. And this deck, there's nothing really like it around. There's like, the archetypes in it, there are plenty of decks for. But the only name I could come up with this deck is just called Synchro. So, the Synchro Storm and this small collective effort that I've noticed in the past like year and a half, Wind in Yugioh is the worst attribute. By far, Wind is the worst attribute. It has the least amount of support, and it's very limited in its toolbox. But within a year, like with Synchro Storm and a few other sets and archetype support, there has been a genuine effort for Wind to gain a lot of traction back with some of the other attributes, because of how far behind it was. And we can see this when you're looking at the new Windwitches or the Speedroids, how, yes, they are very wind-locked, but a lot of the monsters you are summoning have very, very powerful effects, and are almost, their only restriction is actually just wind monsters. So that was my first notice of this deck coming into existence. The second is how within 1 week I uploaded both a Windwitch and a Speedroid quick combo, and after making both those videos I realized these cards have pretty much the exact same restrictions. So afterwards I decided to play test like a deck with both of these, and then a little bit of generic wind support, and within like probably every 2 to 3 like test hands of this deck, it would change drastically, and it was like overlapping over and over again of what this deck was trying to do and what it's trying to win, or how it's trying to win. Eventually I got to the point where I came up with this. And you should be seeing it on screen right now. This is Wind Synchro. Its win condition and its strategy are still very up in the air. Even when playtesting it, it's very high variance. I either completely dominate games and have a very high win rate, but then, like, next round, I'll, like, not even win a game. So this definitely needs a lot of work. It's not very consistent at doing well or not doing well. But let's just go ahead and get straight into it. I'm not going to explain the cards specifically, just the engines I want to point out and how they work, how they function, and how a bunch of these just like wind synchro archetypes have immediate synergy with each other. And like perhaps similar to how Earth Machine works, maybe just throwing a bunch of these archetypes together might actually create some kind of strategy. But let's get into it. The first engine I want to talk about is Speedroids. So, yesterday, the quick combo with Terratop, pretty strong, and it doesn't even take your normal summon to get the Terratop engine part going. But in this deck, you're not playing anything besides like Terratop or Speedroid extenders, so you get a lot of value pre-normal summon. You can make a Crystal Clear Wing, a Crystal Wing, or some really big Synchro plays with just a Terratop alone. And that's very cool. Next, the Windwitch engine. So this one's a little different. Ice Spell is a Synchro card. Like, it has a lot of the same restrictions that the Speedroids do, except Ice Spell restricts any level 5 or higher monsters from the extra deck, or level 4 a lower. My bad. So, this is kind of tricky, because that means once you use Ice Spell, the Terratop no longer goes into Cork Blaster plays, because you can't summon it from the extra deck. Now, Glass Spell's restriction of only summoning Wind, that doesn't matter that much, because this entire deck is Wind. That doesn't change much of anything. But Ice Spell's restriction of, like, no XE summoning, no Link summoning, and all your Synchros have to have be level 5 or higher is very tricky. But that being said, this is still a Synchro play, and access to multiple tuners before your normal summon. Whereas Glass Spell doesn't have that restriction and gets some cards on board. However, it does take your normal summon. So that's like the difference. And a lot of the extenders in this deck right now are specifically tuners, which wouldn't be that bad if it wasn't for the fact that this card is also a tuner. So keep that in mind. And these two extenders, this one's a better extender to just draw, because all you need to control is wins and nothing but wins, which is easy. But this one, you need to only control Windwitch, which is a little worse. Definitely a dead end in this engine. And then finally, for like the generic Wind support, we got Wind the Wind Channeler. You can discard this in a Wind to search pretty much any monster in this deck. I think the only thing it doesn't search is Ghost Mourner. Yeah, I think it literally searches everything but Ghost Mourner. So yeah, you can search Troll with this after you're done comboing. But yeah, that's a very good search. And then Pelika, Descendant of Gusto. This is effectively a Wolf Bark for this deck. And that's very important, because right now this deck, its biggest weakness is between inconsistency, but more importantly, even when you get it consistent, this deck has a lot of trouble getting follow-up. And this is a just very powerful follow-up. It's another Synchro. Next turn, a normal summon is a Synchro. Very early on, I was testing like a Gusto engine with like Griffin and a Gusto level 3 tuner, but they are probably some of the worst dead weights in the deck, and the only way to really trigger Griffin is like with Domino, Butterfly, Wind. There are very limited uses. And hand traps, I would always keep in mind a Wind thing, because some of your restrictions in this deck not only are not just like special summoning Wind, but you can only activate monster effects of Wind monsters. And Ghost Mourner is very nice, because it is a level 3 Wind tuner. So that means after you use it, Pelika can just summon it back, and you can make a Synchro that way. That's pretty cool. And Droll being searchable is also very, very cool. Some more engines I want to go over. Like, this engine slot is, like, conflicting with a lot of different things. Like, it's fighting for the same room for very different reasons. The first one you can go with is Mecha Phantom Beast. And you can go with Mecha Phantom Beast because of Rubber Band Shooter into Auroradon. So Tetherwolf, you can, when it's normal summoned, you special summon a token. So that's the link to right there. Or if you just have like a tuner extender like Car Turbo, you can make some synchros just right there. And then we got the only Mecha Phantom Beast tuner that I even consider playable. The other two, one of them is banned, and the other is, it isn't really usable. It is nearly impossible to use properly. So it's definitely this one, and this one is definitely not great. It is very awkward, but that's like probably one of the worst parts about this engine specifically is Mecha Phantom Beast without O-Lion doesn't really have any tuners like of any kind. It doesn't have any great tuners to go with. So some other engines that I've been testing are the Symphonic Warriors. So it's mainly with the Pendulum Monster guitar. You can discard a card to special summon any Symphonic Warrior from the deck. You could go Mike's, but this deck already doesn't have very many normal summons in it. So it'd much more be used as a level 5. But the tuners are much better because you have level 3, level 2, level 1. But they are very, very much dead weight. And then the level 4 actually isn't a tuner at all, but that's kind of fine because sometimes you need non-tuners. So this is an engine I've been keeping in mind, and this engine is actually very good when you're playing Gusto Griffin. So that's something to keep in mind. So this is another engine I want to, like, throw in the mix in some way, because these cards are definitely very useful. And again, you always want to try to find ways to get tuners on board without... you want to get a lot of monsters on board before your normal summon. That's a big, like, point of this deck. And another engine I want to go over is one Awakening of the Possessed Rasen Ryu. So this card, you might be asking, how do you normal summon it? And it's very, very simple. Just activating Ice Spell. What you do is you activate Ice Spell, special summon it, and then Glass Spell. Glass Spell will search any of these. You'll probably search Freeze Spell in this scenario. And then special summon Freeze Spell, and then you will turn the Freeze Spell and the Ice Spell into Raisen Ryu. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Because the way you special summon this from your deck is you send a face-up spellcaster and a level 4 lower wind, which you did both. And then when it's special summoned, you can return a card your opponent controls of the hand that doesn't target, and that's nice. And then when it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can search this card, which is a 2-for-1 trap, but because it's searched, it kind of deletes its own minus. But this is actually how Windwitches can make Shinshin. Because you just turn 2 Windwitches into that level 5, and then you keep Glass Spell up, which can be used as the tuner, and then the non-tuner is a level 5, so you have Shinshin. So that's pretty cool. You also get a trap search after doing so. So this is another engine I wanted to keep in mind. It's definitely got some pretty dead ends to it, like this one. Not great to draw, and this is very terrible to draw. Even though you can still summon it, if it's in hand, you don't want to... It's still a level 5. That's not great. The synchros are all over the place right now, I'll tell you that. This one is very important. I actually didn't realize this existed. So it has an effect where it can attribute itself to increase the level of everything on the field. That's cool. It can come up sometimes, but the more important thing is, if it's in your graveyard and you control a Speedroid tuner, you can just special summon it out of your grave. And then it says you cannot special summon except wind monsters, but and literally the entire deck is that restriction. Then you got Chambara, another option. Stardust Charge, like, all these wind synchro monsters are so important. And actually, one of the reasons I was drawn to this deck and I was trying to test it over and over again was this card, Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. This card, I honestly believe this card could be very good against Sword Soul, because if they activate a monster effect that targets a level 5 or higher monster, can negate the activation and destroy it. And if they activate a level 5 or higher monster's effect on field, can negate the activation and destroy it. And if either of those effects destroy a monster, you gain attack equal to the destroyed monster till the end of the turn. The OG Clearwing. So, in that deck, in Sword Soul, the only out to it that doesn't trigger this card is Boxia. It is the only one that does it, because it will be Chainlink 1, and then Chainlink 2 will be a Sword Soul to chain block it, or they will use the Sword Soul that targets 2 things, so this one can't negate it because it needs your opponent to target exactly 1. However, if you have any form of prevention for that Boxia, like Imperm, Ghost Mourner, or even some of your own synchros like Fast Dragon, it means that their only true out to it is not possible, and that means this card just gets to reign free. Because let's put it in a perspective like this. They summon Baroness and activate the effect to target Clearwing. You activate the effect to negate a targeting effect. Then they chain Baroness to try to negate that effect, and this other effect on it can activate to destroy Baroness. So all their 2-card interactions, like a lot of their synchros, like Baroness and the level 8, I'm blanking on its name, have 2 effects, and you get to negate both of them, whereas Crystal Wing is a little worse at it, because Crystal Wing, let's say against Baroness, if Baroness targets Crystal Wing, you have to negate it or you lose it, but once you negate it, Baroness will negate that and then destroy it. The only time that won't happen is when you get to Snowbell, but if you get to Snowbell, that's only being done by the Windwitch engine and not the Speedroid engine. So Clearwing is a lot easier to make than Crystal Wing in those scenarios, and it's just very effective against that deck. It's also very effective against decks you really wouldn't think it is. I just think Clearwing is actually pretty decent right now, and I think it'll be really decent going up, coming into the next meta. So I'm excited for this card. But I've been going on about this too long. So, like, Double Crystal Wing definitely happens more than you think it would. And another card I want to put back in the extra deck is Totem Bird. The only time you can't summon this is when you're under the Windwitch restriction, but if you're not under that restriction, you usually can summon this a lot of the time, and then it's just a spell and trap negation by detaching both materials. And then Shin and Wolfriate, excellent synchro options. Then Baroness, and then Crystal Clearwing. This is definitely cuttable. Honestly, in testing, Crystal Clearwing is never worth making. Its effect is very good, but it's so restricted. There's only one line of play that even gets to summon it. I almost feel like if this just said 1 tuner monster, it'd be fine, but it says 1 tuner synchro monster. And when you're in a deck that's only wind monsters, that's like only 2 cards in the game. That's Cork Blaster and Marcher. Only two things can make. Only 2 tuners are possible for this card. And then specifically a Clearwing monster. That is so specific. and it so rarely comes up, this could probably be replaced with something that you'll use more often. And then this can give you tuner access when you don't have any. And then Auroradon is a card. Yeah, that's basically it for this prototype deck. There's a lot more testing that needs to go into it. I actually would encourage you guys, if you're kind of interested in this hybrid idea, to test it out for yourself. Because I'm just going to warn you right now, it is very hit or miss. You will completely dominate a game, or you will open unplayable right now. I've been trying to formulate ways to try to mend this. Like, you could probably cut these traps for more cards, but it's really up in the air, and I'm not really sure how to approach this problem, because this isn't a deck that's really existed before. Like I said, the engines of this deck have existed for a long time, but never synergized together. And while they do have synergy together, again, it's having consistency issues right now, and that's what I want to fix. But that's going to be it from me. Thank you all for watching. If you're, like I said, if you're interested in playing this deck, go ahead and give it a try. Understand that results will not be great for you right now, but I think the more effort you put into this deck, you're probably going to get something out of it. I think this is a very interesting concept. I really want to test with this more. It actually just seems like a really cool deck, and hopefully we can get it working. But yep, that's about it. Thank you all for watching, and remember, Master Dinnerflax will take your soul.